Shalom. Welcome to the Messianic Hour with Rabbi Scott Seculo. The Messianic Hour is a program designed to give you insight into the Jewish roots of your faith. Rabbi Scott is also here to answer your questions and help you gain a deeper understanding of Bible prophecy. And now, here's your host, Rabbi Scott Seculo.
Shalom and welcome to another edition of the Messianic Hour. I'm your host, Rabbi Scott. This show is dedicated to reaching the lost and educating the found. I'm here with my wife, Judy, as we look at what's going on in the Scripture from a Jewish and Gentile perspective as it relates to our Messiah. We have a very special show for you today. We're going to be kind of breaking from our normal show as there's a lot going on in Israel right now. Egypt with the latest elections of their president and their dismantlement of their Senate is bringing up some interesting situations as the Muslim Brotherhood has once again taken control. This is the group that birthed groups like Hamas and the anti-terrorist groups against Israel. Very serious. Rockets are being sent from Egypt into Israel. We're going to be talking about that in just a second. But also, we're going to be talking to Ron Cantor, who is in Israel, and a good friend of ours. He's also coming out with a book. We're going to get his perspective on what's going on in Israel as well, and this situation of his new book that's coming out. So you're not going to miss that. But, Judy, there's a lot going on. You're reading the news just like I am as we're doing the show. What are you seeing taking place?
Well, there's always a lot because we know it's in the end times. One thing I did think was kind of it's more on a non-serious note. I can't talk today, but Bibi has doodled for Google. The big thing is doodle for Google, and they'll put it up on Google. Well, he did a doodle for Google, but he's also meeting with the executive chairman of Global Google, who is very, enthused about Israeli talent.
That's right, and Israel has a lot of different things going on, but there's again this pressure that's taking place.
Yes.
You were just reading about the situation in Egypt. Why don't you tell us on that?
Well, I was actually reading about the 41 rockets that had gone into Israel from Hamas claiming responsibility for that, and they said they were trying to hit a Israeli base.
Right, so you have Hamas now attacking. Also, earlier this week, you had Egypt sending rockets into Israel, and Israel is now sending tanks down to the southern border to protect it. Also, they're looking to build another international airport there, and that's one of the reasons why we see this going on. There's a lot of turmoil, and we're going to be talking with Ron Cantor about this and about his book and what's going on in Israel. We need to keep informed of what's going on. I want to encourage you to go to our website right now, RabbiScott.com. Sign up for our newsletter. This way we can keep you informed of all the late-breaking things that are happening. You want to check that out, RabbiScott.com. Sign up for our newsletter. You get the free book, I Have a Friend Who's Jewish to You, and the prophecy card just for signing up. It's a free gift from us to you. Again, lots going on in Israel. We're going to do a special show to really look in what's happening, to get an idea from the land of what's going on. Is Israel on the verge of being attacked again? Is Egypt getting ready to disband the promises it's made, the peace treaty? That's what they're claiming. We're going to talk more right after this. Stay tuned. You're listening to the Messianic Hour. Welcome back to the Messianic Hour. I'm your host, Rabbi Scott. We're doing a special edition as we're looking at what's going on right now in Israel. And we're talking with Ron Cantor, who is a good friend of ours. He lives in the land. He also is just finished writing a book. In fact, it's just going out this week called Identity Theft. And we're going to be talking about that too. But Ron, before we get into that, I want to get some insight of what's going on there right now in Israel, what you're feeling. Here in the States, we know that in Egypt, the Muslim Brotherhood has just had their president elected as the new president of Egypt. We're hearing that rockets have already been sent on Saturday into southern Israel from Egypt. Tanks have been going down there to protect the new building of the international airport in Israel. What are you hearing inside the land, and what's your perspective?
Well, it's interesting, Scott. You really don't hear a lot on the street. For the most part, Israelis were so used to controversy that people just go on, they live their lives. Obviously, if you go to the news, the website, turn on the TV, there's definitely great concern. But the average Israeli, we live our lives. Now, the great concern is that, what was hailed as the Arab Spring about a year ago has quickly turned into an Islamic nightmare. Instead of freedom and democracy, it looks like Egypt is moving towards a fundamentalist regime, not unlike Saudi Arabia or Iran, and they're right on our doorstep. So on the one hand, we go about living our lives. On the other hand, there's great concern over what could happen in Egypt.
And so, while it's not a lot going on in the streets, what are you hearing from the believers in the land? How is this affecting them? What are you seeing with that?
The great concern is the Sinai Desert. In the Sinai Desert, there's basically no rule of law. There are weapons cartels. They are digging tunnels into Israel. And so, believers in the land, they're very concerned because see Islam has done around the radical Islam. We're right now here, our good friend Umar Malinde, a pastor from Uganda, Islamic terrorists threw acid in his face. It's just getting worse and worse. So as a believer here in Israel, there's a great concern about radical Islam, not only in Egypt, but even in Syria. Who knows what's going to happen? Assad he's a butcher. He's a dictator. He's an evil human being. But I'm a little concerned what would replace him.
Now, so you have that going up in the north. In the south, you have Egypt, of course, going over to the east. What about the situation in Iran? Do you see Israel going to knocking out the nuclear plants?
Well, I'm not an expert, but I don't think we're going to do anything before the American elections. President Obama has not been a good friend to Israel, as most U.S. presidents are. He has snubbed Prime Minister Netanyahu on more than one occasion. I think that the administration here in Israel, Netanyahu administration, that they're going to wait it out and see who wins in November before they do anything. So I don't think we're going to attack Iran soon, but I can tell you that there's great concern here in Israel about a nuclear-armed Iran. It really just can't happen.
Yeah, it's amazing to see what's going on there and the turmoil. Right now, to our listeners who are listening all through the U.S. and also on the Internet, what would you say they need to do right now, prayer-wise, to pray for Israel? What would you suggest?
So pray for revival. It's easy to get caught up in all these other issues, as serious as they are, what's going on in Egypt, Iran, Syria. But as believers here in the land, we're looking for God to pour out His Spirit. We're looking for Romans 11:26 to be fulfilled, where all Israel shall be saved. So the most, when people ask me how they can pray that God would pour out His Spirit, that the Jewish people would come to know their Messiah.
Yeah, that's such an important thing, not only in Israel, but here in the States as well. As you know, we face that same battle of very much a secular type of Jewish community and not really focusing on God, and we really need that prayer, not only in Israel, but around the world. So you're hearing what's going on firsthand in the land. But, Ron, I want to talk to you about your book that you have. You're just coming out with a new book called Identity Theft. And first of all, how did you get that title? That's an interesting title for a Messianic book.
Well, it's not a suspense thriller about a computer hacker. It is a story about the greatest and most ancient case of identity theft that there ever was, and that was stealing the identity of the Jewish Messiah. The church world has done a pretty good job at recognizing Yeshua's divinity, understanding His mission and why He came, that He came to die for us, to be a Savior and Messiah. But when it came to His humanity, they basically ethnically cleansed Him to the point that when I became a believer, Scott, in 1983, I thought I was no longer Jewish.
Right.
I said to myself, I'm a Gentile now. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I felt that in order to believe in the Jewish Messiah, I had to cut myself off from the Jewish religion, from my heritage, from my people. So it all started about a year ago when I was rewriting my testimony book. I wasn't actually rewriting my testimony; that stayed the same. But I was sharpening it up, and there was a section about the Jewish roots of the faith. So I began to write about that. And as I began to write, I couldn't stop. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to make a little booklet. And the more I wrote, the more I researched, it quickly became a book. And I thought, well, what should we call this book about the Jewishness of Jesus? And it just seemed appropriate, Identity Theft.
Yeah, and that book is coming out when? Isn't it at the printers right now?
A week and a half. It's coming out July 1st.
And
July 1st. And if folks go to our website, they can pre-order it. And we'll be shipping it on July 1st.
Great. So the website, give them that information, please.
They can just use my name, roncantor.com, and they should be able to find something they can click to get the book, or they can go to idtheftbook.com.
Great.
idtheftbook.com.
So we want to give them some more information on that. Now, again, you kind of mentioned a little bit of why you wrote the book, but what would you say was the main emphasis of what really triggered this idea? You said, you're rewriting your testimony, but this is a very deep topic because, like you said, becoming a Jewish believer, many people felt, I've heard this from a number of people, that, once I became a believer, I thought I had to go eat ham sandwiches and go to service on Sunday and put up a Christmas tree. And that's not what you're really expecting, is it?
And learn how to hunt. I thought I would also have to learn how to hunt. Fortunately, I didn't have to do that. But yeah, it's true. What struck me is Acts 15. Acts 15 is the first controversy of the early believers. And the controversy was, does a Gentile have to become a Jew, convert to Judaism, circumcision, all that, in order to believe in the Jewish Messiah? That's what they were arguing about. Now, if you had gone to that council and you had said to James or Peter or any of those guys, no, actually, you guys are no longer Jewish, they would have thought that was completely absurd. But then 2,000 years later, when Ron Cantor comes to faith in 1983, that's exactly what I thought. I wasn't Jewish. So I wanted to find out what happened between Acts 15 in 1983. And what I found out was a determined, systematic plan by the church to rid the gospel of its Jewish roots. And it started all the way back in the year 49 when Claudius kicked all the Jews out of Rome. The young Roman church interpreted that as God's judgment on the Jewish people. And so when they came back a few years later, they were allowed back into the city. They were treated like second-class believers. That's why Paul writes in Romans 11, he says, be careful in how you treat the Jewish people, because they were treating them very poorly. And then it just got worse and worse. In fact, if you go to 364, the year 364, the church actually declared that the Lord's Day is now Sunday, the Sabbath is Sunday, and not just that, that's bad enough. But they actually said that any Christian, Jew or Gentile, any Christian who celebrates the Jewish Sabbath is cut off from Christ. And I'm quoting there. So you're going to hell if you celebrate the Jewish Sabbath. And then it got worse, where if a Jewish person actually wanted to embrace the Jewish Messiah in the 700s, 800s, 900s, he would have to publicly renounce Judaism.
Right. In
fact, during the Inquisitions, a Jew would have to read a confession where he would basically declare that Judaism is equal to witchcraft. He must promise never to refuse to eat pork again, and he must declare that he will never be friends with any other non-baptized Jew again. And then,
Ron, I'm going to hold you right there because we're coming up on a break, and I want to continue this into the next segment. But we're seeing here how the early church has made this change to bring the Jewishness out of it. So we're going to look at that when we get back. You're listening to the Messianic Hour. Go to our website, RabbiScott.com. We got a link to Ron's website and to order his book right there on our website. Check it out. We'll be back right after this break. Stay tuned.